To make your own Magnum caliber Savage Axis, you're going to need a Savage Magnum bolt head. Now this is a standard bolt head, left or right-handed depending on your rifle. It's going to be also a standard push feed. As you can see, this is not a controlled feed bolt head. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be modifying the shank, that's this part of the bolt head, so that it is about 1 inch from the back of the bolt lugs to the end of the shank. Now there are a number of different ways you can do this, a number of different ways you can lay this out. I've got layout fluid here. You do the sort of poor man's comparator, set your calipers to 1 inch and scribe a line a little over 1 inch. You might use some 1 inch masking tape and just make sure that you are not close to hitting the edge of it once you're done. Or you could do, as I'm going to do, use a drill, which I know the angled portion down here is just about the same the same length as the amount of metal that I'm going to remove off the top of the bolt head shank, or off the end of the bolt head shank. I'm going to lock this down in my press, in my drill press vise, and get to work. Okay, I'm locked in place. Now the reason I said I'm going to come up shy of a 1 inch long shank is because I'm going to sort of walk it in with some files, some hand files and some emery cloth, just to get it to the exact right length. We're going to be using a guide to control both our filing in terms of its squareness and its length that every Savage Axis owner should have, and that's the Savage Axis firing pin. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Right now I'm going to start cutting with the drill bit. Alright, as you can see, the drill is cut in a nice chamfer on the inside, and since it was centered, it's going to leave me with a nice concentric ring of metal around the outside. By observing that, it should give me a good indication of how I'm doing in terms of keeping this square. I have the firing pin that is going to act as my gauge once I get close, and I'll start checking for firing pin protrusion once I get close to the 1 inch mark that I've scored on the outside. I don't know how well it's showing up, probably because it's not on that side. In the die chem, and that's going to allow me to know when I'm getting close and to start checking my work and switch to a finer file. I'll spare you most of the filing, but just be a nice square stroke right across the top. It makes such an attractive sound. One thing I neglected to mention, I'm down past where I've chamfered the inside of the shank, and it's getting to the point where the firing pin is just beginning to protrude past the bolt face. This inside of the firing pin, where it transitions to the firing pin stop, is radiused. So if I don't have any more chamfer left in there, I'm not going to get a good reading for how deep the firing pin is actually seated and how much it's actually exposed. So I'm going to put it back on the drill press. I might be able to do it with just like a countersink or a handheld chamfering or deburring tool, but I'm going to remove a little bit more than I want to with just a hand tool. So I'm going to put it back in the drill press and get a good reading to see how close I am to my desired depth. Alright, new chamfer has been cut on the inside. My firing pin protrusion is just over 2/100ths of an inch. I'm going to aim for about 4/100ths, maybe 5/100ths before I start polishing up. But since I'm getting closer, I'm going to switch away from the Magic Cut file and go to something a little bit finer. And this is the finished product. As you can see, I've chamfered the inside here just to make sure I've got as much clearance as I could possibly need for the firing pin. The firing pin protrusion is currently set, there we go, at about 0.05 inches, which is just about right for this kind of application. As you can see, the firing pin acted as a square, or guide to keep the back square. Made it nice and easy on that regard. I just finished up the back Along with the fine files, just some 250 then 400 grit emery cloth, and then sort of gave it a final going over with a brush loaded with 400 grit polishing compound. The edges, there we go, the edge of the shank, I knocked down, or dehorned I guess is the right word for it, with some maroon Scotch-Brite, and it's ready to get cleaned up and go into a rifle.